Joining me now is Security Minister Dan Jarvis. Minister, thank you so much for your time this morning. I'm going to start with a story that seems to be making a little bit of a ruckus. And sorry, it's not about immigration. We'll get onto that in just a moment. But it is this story about your Labour colleague, Taiwo Owatemi. Should she have used £900 of taxpayers' cash so that her cockapoo Bella can stay at her London home?
Well, good morning. I completely understand why you've asked me about that. And I'm sure the public will be wondering why it is the case that an MP is able to do that. That's why the government are going to make representations to IPSA, the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, about the rules. Because we're concerned about rules, we don't think that it should be the case that somebody could do what's happened here. It is important to make the point that under the existing rules, she hasn't done anything wrong, but we don't think the rules are right. And that's why we're going to raise concerns with IPSA about it.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Let's move on to Yvette Cooper's pledge to end jobs on tap for illegal immigrants. This is a crackdown on those working in the so-called gig economy. Having said that, Mr. Jarvis, she still hasn't smashed the gangs, has she? We've had 30,000 arrivals by boat since Labour took power.
For 6 years, the previous government allowed the criminal networks that smuggle people into this country to largely get away with it. We are tackling their activities by working very closely with our neighbours internationally. And that's why we are hosting the summit in London over the next couple of days, because this is a truly international challenge. And the solution will have to be truly international as well. It will involve us, as we are, working very closely with the French, but with a range of other partners along the supply networks that people are trafficked along. So this is the UK showing real leadership in terms of bringing more than 40 countries from around the world together to look at what more we can do to tackle this pernicious activity.
Yes. You say the Tory government allowed people to get away with it. In what way is Labour not allowing people to get away with it? As of the 28th of March 2025, 6,642 people arrived illegally by boat. This is the earliest point in the year that crossings have reached that point since records began. So you could say that a record number of people have arrived here. In what way is that Labour taking any more action than the Tories did?
Well, I'm sure you'd also acknowledge that there have been 19,000 people who've been returned. So that's 19,000 asylum claims that has been refused, and 19,000 people who've been returned since we came into office. That is an increase of more than 20%. So there's significant activity with regard to returns. There's also very significant activity in terms of working with partners, not just with the French, and the French have made some very significant changes to the way that they will manage this particular challenge, which I think will deliver real operational effect over the coming weeks and months. But also look at the work that we're doing with Iraq. Iraq is a major hub for these smuggling networks. We've got an agreement with them. So a drawing together of this activity will mean that we are much better placed than was the case previously to target these criminal networks. The NCA have shifted some of their resource. There's been some additional investment from this government. So this is a difficult and challenging international problem, and we're working with our partners to get a grip of it in the way that the previous government wasn't able to.
I used to have to use the razor that my ex-girlfriend used to shave her legs. It scratched me and it made me feel weird. But fear not, because Manscaped is back with a game changer. This isn't just any old shaver. We're talking about the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver with 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. One for that baby smooth look and another when you want to keep it a bit rugged. Get this, it's waterproof. You can use it in the shower, by the pool, or even while scuba diving if that's your thing. This beauty runs for 75 minutes on a single charge. That's enough time to shave your face, your mate's face, and still have juice left over for touch-ups. You'll also get their Power Shave Gel for a proper wet shave experience, and a face shave soother to keep your mug looking fresh and irritation-free. It's like having a barber in your bathroom, minus the awkward small talk. Click the link in the description and use the code GBN for a whopping 20% off and free shipping with the code GBN at manscaped.com. Join the 11 million blokes worldwide who trust Manscaped. Your face will thank you, and so will your wallet.
Although doesn't it betray a lack of seriousness about tackling the issue of immigration, legal and illegal, to discover that there was barely a mention of the word immigration in Rachel Reeves' spring statement on Wednesday?
I'm not sure I necessarily sort of draw the link between the two. This government is absolutely clear about the priority that we attach both to reducing net migration, which obviously includes legal migration, but also targeting those criminal networks that are smuggling people into our country. We've got to do everything that we can, and we are. The French have made a number of very helpful changes to their operational policy. You may recall that during the Olympic Games, there was a massive reduction in the number of people who crossed the channel. We're going to move back to an arrangement such as that, which should have a significant impact on people crossing. And all of the work that we're doing internationally, not least in terms of the bringing together of 40 nations around the country over the next couple of days. So I'm confident that we will see very significant reductions. We're working at pace across government and with our allies, and absolutely it is a top priority for this government.
But I mentioned the spring statement because obviously the government has announced this crackdown on benefits. I found it staggering that the Chancellor didn't mention immigration in her speech when you consider that 1.2 million foreign nationals are claiming benefits and the universal credit bill for foreign nationals alone is 7.5 billion.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons why the Home Secretary has made an announcement that she'll be working with international partners on today about ensuring that business conduct right-to-work checks, because there is a particular issue at the moment with people who've come here, overstayed and are working illegally, but employers are not making the checks that are required in order to confirm who is able to work legally or not. So this eligibility check, which we will be introducing, will go a significant way to reducing the number of people who are seeking to work here in the UK when they're not entitled to do so.
OK, but the Chancellor's economic sums don't add up, do they, Mr Jarvis? On one hand, she says she is sticking to her non-negotiable fiscal rules, and we discover that she's borrowing 20 billion more over the next 2 years. She then made the claim that British householders would be £500 better off by the budget. Actually, in reality, this is what's going to happen to bills after April the 1st. Water up 26%, energy up 6.4%, broadband up 6.4%, council tax up 5%, trains up 4.6%, stamp duty up, tax up, mobile contracts up, TV licence up. So how on earth has she come up with this £500 figure? Well,
with respect, you didn't mention the economic inheritance, the fact that we inherited a massive financial...
I'm talking about the £500 promise only, Mr Jarvis. Can we address that rather than talking about 14 years of Tory rule? How on earth can she promise £500? It's the same as Ed Miliband saying that there would be £300 off energy bills, when actually more than £300 has been added to energy bills since Labour took power.
But I hope that you and your viewers would acknowledge the very challenging financial circumstances that we inherited from the previous government. And yes, of course, the Chancellor has had to take difficult decisions in order to fix the foundations of our economy so that we are best placed to secure economic growth and invest in public services that have been run down over many years. The Chancellor has had to take difficult decisions, but we are confident that over the course of this Parliament, that will result in economic growth, which will allow us to more effectively invest in public services, which will improve...
I appreciate the economic inheritance, but to suggest that we're going to be £500 better off is a lie, isn't it? I've just given you the figures to suggest precisely the opposite will be true. So why is she telling lies in spring statements?
He isn't, and I think that is an unfair and unreasonable criticism. The Chancellor is doing a good job on the very difficult circumstances. Yes, she's had to make some difficult choices. Yes, there have been some criticisms around those choices. But in large part, this is clearing up the mess that we inherited. And that is what this government will continue to do, to ensure that we take the tough decisions that the previous government shied away from, not least in terms of things like welfare reform, the measures that we've announced with regard to NHS England.
Hang on.
There is good news as well.
Right.
I mean, look at what the OBR said in terms of the work that we're doing on planning reform that will deliver a £6 billion uplift to our economy.
Although it's also been pointed out by the OBR that Labour will not hit its 1.5 million housing target by the end of the Parliament. But my question is this, Mr Jarvis, how on earth can it be credible for the Chancellor to have claimed, considering everything you've said about the economic legacy that you've inherited, the difficult situation the Chancellor herself has blamed world events. How on earth is it credible to suggest that the British public will be £500 better off after her budget and spring statement? It's an untruth.
Well, I know as a constituency MP that we are still living through the legacy of the cost of living crisis, and times are very tough for lots of people. But that is precisely why the government is making tough choices. That is why we are reforming welfare, because let's be honest about it, significant amount of money has been invested into welfare without the reforms that need to go with it. Look at the money that we've invested into the NHS, but the value that that is now adding in terms of reduced waiting lists month after
I'm going to ask one more time. Is the £500 claim true when I have listed all of the bills that are going to go up for householders after April the 1st? Is it true to say we're going to be £500 better off, because all of the sums suggest precisely the opposite?
Well, I completely back what the Chancellor has said. She will look at this in the round. She will look at the costs that people will have to cover. She absolutely acknowledges the difficult circumstances that we're operating in. And is why the government is taking tough choices to fix the foundations of our economy so that we've got the resource available there to invest in our public services for the benefit of the public.
Why do you think so many millionaires are leaving the country under Labour? One every 45 minutes. We now hear that the steel giant Lakshmi Mittal will be the latest to leave the country.
Well, in truth, and I mean this very respectfully, you'd have to ask them and not me. But what I can tell you is that we are pursuing a balanced economic policy. It is a basic principle that those with the broadest shoulders should carry the heaviest of load. But of course, we recognise the huge contribution that our wealth creators add to our economy. So I'm sorry if anybody takes the decision that they want to leave the country. Ours is a great country with very much to commend it. But people will have to make their own individual choices. But I don't agree with the inference that this government is seeking to encourage people to do that, because we are simply not. We want people to live here, to invest in our economy, to pay their taxes and contribute to our society. I mentioned the economic inheritance. We've had to take some difficult choices, but we've tried to do that in the most balanced way possible.
OK, Dan Jarvis, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.